some reason.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Hump Day Hangouts. This is episode 384. Happy to be here. We're going to try to keep things relatively brief up front today because we have got a ton of questions, which is awesome. Really appreciate it. Hope we can get through them all. If we can't, though, just make sure that you come back, ask your question, and we'll have to take a look. If there's a bunch of repeat questions, we may have to skip through that. We just ask that people ask one, but we get it. If there's a series of questions you have, you can, of course, put them on there. We just may not be able to get to them in time if there's a lot of questions. So we give that disclaimer because we want to give everyone a fair chance here. That said, I'm going to go around and we'll say hello to the guys before we have a couple quick announcements and then jump into it. So Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing really good, super good weather. 20 degrees Celsius here. Spring is definitely here. But I also gotta say, this week, I don't like it. Feels from last Hump Day Hangout till today, the whole thing feels like a month because there's so many things that have happened. Things, and lots of work got done and stuff. So it's crazy, but gotta speed up the time, compress it, and make the most out of it.
Fair enough, man. I hear you. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I'm going to have Bradley touch on one of them. But Bradley, real quick, how you doing?
Busier than shit. That's a good thing, though. It's better than the alternative, which is to not have enough to do, right? And so, yeah, just crazy busy. I just dumped a whole bunch of new training into the Build with Bradley group for the directory stuff. We were supposed to have the directory site builds kind of, my plan initially was to have it, the minimum viable product up by the last meeting, which was 2 weeks ago. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks. The directory theme and plugin that we decided to go with turned out to be a lot more of a learning curve than I had anticipated, which is I should have anticipated that. So anyways, it took me a lot longer. I spent 24 hours of work time in the last 2 weeks learning out how to work that, to configure all that shit, which I did not plan on. And so anyways, throughout that process over the last 2 weeks, I recorded several training videos I recorded most of those today actually, but I distilled all of what I've learned in the last 2 weeks into a series of videos and notes, and I dumped that into the group. And I expect everybody that's in the Build with Bradley group to have gone through all of it between now and tomorrow. No, I'm kidding. But seriously, I had hoped to have that stuff done a week and a half ago, but it ended up being an enormous task, but it's done. And that's a good thing. So we can start progressing that project forward again, which the next meeting is tomorrow. But on top of that, I've released some more training to the SOP, the Google Business SOP. Hoping to get more at it on Friday again. I had some requests for some very specific things, so I'm going to try to get that done on Friday. That just continues to grow and evolve, and just like Chris said, it's just crazy. It seems like we're squeezing a month's worth of work into a week. Yeah. So it's been very busy lately.
Cool. Well, you touched on the stuff I was going to bring up because I just saw you posted in the mastermind about the new training being added. So just wanted to say to people too, if you weren't sure where this was at, this is only stuff that's available inside of the mastermind. It's this training, but also a hell of a lot more. If you want to find out more about the mastermind, just go to mastermind.semanticmastery.com. And Bradley, just for context for people who may not know, can you give a short background on the directory, the Build with Bradley, what's going on there and kind of where that came from?
Yeah, I about almost a year and a half ago now, I started a directory site for my own tree service, my own marketing agency. treecarehq.com is the web address. And I was using that specifically for prospecting. It's just a conversation starter that I use, where I use that. I scrape a bunch of tree service contractor listings, upload them via CSV file into the site. It creates listings that are unoptimized, kind of generic company pages, and then I use that in cold emailing to prospects to those companies to basically say hey, please confirm your information for your free directory listing or free company page on the treecarehq.com directory. Just reply back with any corrections needed, or let me know or confirm that the details are accurate. And that's just basically a conversation starter. And so once they reply back, they get added to it. It's an automation that I built using High Level. Got a whole system that I built over the last year that they go into a pipeline. Then my team, my VAs go in and they optimize, like scrape all the data, optimize the company page. And then I use that to initiate the conversation with them, to show them like, hey, here's your page that was been, anyways, it's been basically a prospecting method. It's turned out to be wildly successful. It's helped me to grow my agency, as well as also get a whole bunch of lead buyers in the door for my lead gen assets. And so I'm teaching that now. It's a great strategy. It's so much better than just doing cold calling and cold emails, because instead of approaching your target prospects as a marketing guy or a marketing person, which immediately they throw up their defenses, right? Because they're like, shit, they get solicitation emails and calls all day long, just like we all do, right? So this is different. I'm approaching them as like, hey, I'm just a tech specialist, and that initiates a conversation. I found it much, much easier to start a conversation with my target prospects this way. And then I lead into like, so, hey, what are you doing to generate leads for your business? And that's really where everything starts. And it's been really, really successful. So I figured one of the biggest, I have calls with new mastermind members every time they join. Somebody joins the mastermind, they get a 30-minute call with me. And one of the two of the biggest things that I hear the most common, or the things that I hear the most common that people struggle with. Number one is getting clients. Number two is building systems and being able to scale. And so this solves that first one, which is getting clients. And so I wanted to teach that so that other people could duplicate that into their own businesses. And I've been talking about it for a year, but very few people have attempted to do this on their own. And so I wanted to kind of lead a group where I go through the entire process again. And so I'm rebuilding the directory site with a different theme this time and plugin. And so I'm going through kind of the whole process all over again with this group. And it's a pretty big group. So if you're interested in that, come check it out.
Nice. Cool. Well, let's see. I need to check out my notes again because I got sucked into thinking about directory sites. Right. Wanted to say real quick at the top of the page, if you're watching us live, you can grab the GBP process checklist, and you can get that at gmbprocess.com. You can also see it on the page. If you're checking out the replay, you can find the link down below. Grab that if you are doing anything with GMB, or rather GBP. If you want the full blown SOP, that's again only available in the mastermind and mastermind members. But that is the over-the-shoulder, how to do everything nuts and bolts. The checklist, though, is great if you're getting started or you just want to see how Bradley does it and what he provided as a checklist. That's available for free. All right, guys, I think that's it. We got a ton of questions, so let's get into it.
Where do we start?
Looks like BB. Yeah. Right
So
after Jim.
Right after Jim Dubs?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think that was... I'm pretty sure that's the right spot. All right, let me grab the screen. Okay, should be good, right?
Good to go.
Okay. BB, what's up, buddies? A wall of questions again. Hey, guys, let's say you have a post. These are always such theoretical questions from BB. Let's say you have a post that is a long form article, which is targeted for the seed keyword, not for the long tail. Okay. The post covers all the long tail keywords inside the content, but the competition somehow ranks for those keywords and not the post. But the competition somehow ranks for the keywords and not the post. Okay. So the article is not ranking, but your competitors are. Okay. Will it be okay to do a silo inside the money site, which each long tail keyword will be as a post of its own and will link to the main parent silo page, and bottom level posts will link to the long form post and also to the top level post? Will the small form posts rank? Will it hurt rankings in terms of crawl budget or many posts that contain the seed keyword and there is no cornerstone title like Yoast describes it? Okay. If I understand this correctly, you're saying you've got like a pillar page or a cornerstone content or whatever. There's a number of terms for that, but that is long form content that covers on. And that's how I prefer to do sites now. I like to in the past, more traditional kind of silo structure was you take your top level keyword and that becomes the top of silo page. And then all of your or a number of supporting keywords, which are generally longer tail keywords, each get their own separate post. And then they're, daisy chained or linked together with internal linking, all within the same silo. And there's a number of different internal linking structures for silos. But that was kind of the traditional method. And even for like local sites, which is what I do, local stuff, we would take the top level term and then we would create supporting posts for each one of like the supporting services or the services that would support the top level service keyword, which would be like in my case, tree service, right? And there's tree trimming and tree removal and stump grinding and storm clearing and bush hogging or brush removal, like just a number of these different types of services. Each one would get their own kind of separate, unique post, and they would link up together and interlink together to link up to the top level page. And that's more of a traditional silo, still works. I prefer to do everything in the way that I've been building sites lately, for tree service stuff, is doing it all on one page, like one page sites. And when I say one page, there's other pages like the contact page, about page, privacy, terms of service. Those I'm talking about like the content. There's one page and it's all done on either the home page or a services page now. And then the services page lists all of those keywords that would have been siloed previously, but they're now all on one page with H2 headings and a table of contents plugin at the top. So it's long form content. That's how I prefer to do it. And I'm getting to a point here, BB, because in some cases that's not enough to rank. If it's a more competitive location, then just having that long form page is sometimes not enough to rank. Most of the time as it is, because I can usually accomplish the ranking through off page work, but so link building essentially. But sometimes it's not. In some competitive areas, it requires some additional internal linking. So some additional content, in which case that's what I talk about with like the content mirroring method. Very similar to what you're talking about, BB, which is I take that long form content in each section, each H2 section, which has got a jump link and a table of contents plugin at the top. I summarize that H2 section and it becomes a Google business post, it could become a separate blog post, where a separate blog post would be more, fleshed out, a more fleshed out version of that H2 section of the long form landing page. Does that make sense? So in other words, you can add more context, more detail to a supporting blog post. What I would recommend and what I typically do at that point would that post, the supporting post, is now published in that same category, right, as the top of service page or top of silo page. You have a category for that. So that becomes a supporting article within that silo. And then I would link from within that supporting article, which would be optimized for a specific service or H2 section of that long form page. And it would link to the top of silo page, but more specifically to the jump link, the table of contents, or the anchor link is another term for it, right? From the table of contents. So essentially that the internal link links to the top of silo page, but specifically to that H2 section. It's relevant, right? To see the relevance there, because it's linking directly to that section that is, a summarized or a shorter version of what the blog post is about, right? And then for each subsequent blog post, you do the same thing. And you can link from one post to the previous, so the new post, you link to the previous post. So the first post, supporting post 1, supporting post 2 links to supporting post 1, but also links to the top of silo page, or more specifically to that jump link or anchor link for that H2 section heading. Does that make sense? And again, it's just you daisy chain all this stuff together, and you can link back up to the top of silo page, and you can close the loop to create like a link wheel as well from the last post. And that's just a great way to do it. It's very, very powerful. Again, very similar to the strategy that I talked about in the content mirroring method. We gave that away for 3 days from Black Friday to Cyber Monday last year. After that, we shut it down. Mastermind members have access to that at any time. But it's very, very powerful strategy. In fact, we just did a Press Advantage bonus webinar on Monday. I hosted that, and we talked about that too, because press releases, I use press releases in a content mirroring strategy where we silo them together in very much the same fashion that I just described, answering your question, BB. So hopefully that makes sense. I don't know about the whole crawl budget thing. I guess John Mueller or whatever, somebody just published an article about crawl budgets and things like that. I didn't even read it yet. I don't worry about that. If it's, if you're publishing posts, they'll get crawled, especially if you've got everything connected to Search Console. You got site maps, you publish a post, it's going to get crawled. If you want to force it, go to Search Console, inspect URL, put the post URL in there, tell it, crawl the page, and then submit it for indexing. You can do that. By the way, Rank Math has a instant indexer plugin that connects directly to the API. You don't have to use Rank Math plugin. Apparently you're using Yoast, which I would say run the fuck away from Yoast. I mean that with all sincerity. Don't use Yoast. Use a better plugin than Yoast. Yoast puts a bunch of bloat code in the site and all that other stuff. I don't like Yoast. I haven't liked it for many, many years. But you don't need, what I'm saying is Rank Math is a better plugin, by the way. But you can use a standalone Rank Math instant indexing plugin for your site, which connects to the Google indexing API. And so every time you publish a post, it automatically sends it to Google for indexing. So that's something else that you could do. So I don't worry about crawl budgets and all that other kind of stuff when it comes to that. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say the content mirroring method, we did training on it, which was available. A lot of people got it in our audience. Not everybody did, but I've talked about that in many, many different formats. So it's very powerful content mirroring. Okay, next, Eric says, hey, gents, wondering how you would approach scaling and monetizing a news autoblog that pulls in feeds from places like CNN, HuffPost, etc. Is there risk of duplicate content or SEO penalty? No, I mean, duplicate content is not a real thing. There's that term gets used a lot, but there's the original and there's copies. Where there's potentially duplicate content is not republishing other people's content. You can potentially have issues with copyright stuff, but duplicate content really only occurs if you are publishing the same content on the same multiple places on the same site. In other words, if you publish an article on your site and then you publish it 3 more times on the same site, that can cause some issues for the site. But it's not, when you are republishing other people's content, it's not duplicate content. It's republished content. There's a difference. And so is there any risk of a penalty? I mean, I don't know. I don't really do a lot of that stuff, but my guess would be no, because think about press releases. And again, I say that because I use press releases heavily, have been for many years, still do to this day, and plan on continuing to use press releases very heavily. And press releases, what happens when you publish a press release? It gets published on an original source, and then it gets syndicated, picked up, and republished by hundreds of other outlets, hundreds of other news sites. And it's the same article, no difference, right? There's the original, and then on the syndication sites, there is usually a credit, a link back to its original source, right? And that's how you do it. And again, that it goes back to like our syndication academy training, which is where you publish content on your own money site blog, for example, and then it republishes out across Blogger, Tumblr, WordPress, and a number of social bookmarks and social media sites, and it's all automated using IFTTT. You could use other apps to do it, but whole point is that's why we always included an attribution link, right? Because it was republished content, not duplicate, but republished content on other platforms, and you would put a link back, an attribution link, a citation, right, where you would cite the source of the original article. And that's what, going back to the previous question, Yoast has it automatically inserts that, and most of the SEO plugins do, but Yoast was the first one to do that. That has in the RSS feed settings of the plugin an automatic link attribution. So essentially, if somebody was to scrape your RSS feed, you will get links back anytime they republish from your RSS feed, because it says this post originally appeared on, and then it gives a link back to its original source, right? And so that's again, I've not seen any penalties from that. I'm not saying it can't happen. I just not seen it. If so, that would pretty much put press releases out of business, and they've been pretty much a staple of SEO for many, many years. How can you monetize that? Well, if you can there's a number of ways to monetize it, right? If you've got sites that are getting traffic, you could publish ads. If you categorize the sites properly, which Jeremy from Press Advantage has an app that he's developed called Condis that does something like that, where you can create networks of sites that republish news content, and you can build sites that are focused around particular categories, for example. And in that case, you could monetize it with affiliate offers or CPA offers, right? Things like that that are appropriate for that particular category. You could use it for list building. You could use it for backlink building for essentially like a PBN or a blog network. It just depends on, I mean, there's a number of ways that you can monetize those types of sites. That's, it just, you got to get creative with it. But I mean, think about it. Ads, list building, affiliate offers, CPA offers for link building purposes. There's a number of different ways that you can monetize those. Again, I think they're better if you can have a general news blog site, but I think you can get better traction as far as gaining more authority if you can focus specific sites around specific topics. And then you have like a network of, when I say network, but you can have multiple sites around each different topic being fed with news and content from other sources that are focused in that particular topic or relevant to that particular topic. Then you can get more targeted offers on there. You could also use it again for selling links, for example. That works a lot. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but you probably, if you manage clients' assets, you probably are getting, if your clients tell you, I get notifications all the time from my clients of a lot of people doing outreach now, where they'll say like, hey, we'd like to place a link on your blog. You guys have great content about tree services or landscaping or whatever. And we're an outreach partner, or, we're looking for exposure for one of our, or for our website, or it'll be an agency or an agent that is reaching out on their client's behalf and say, we're looking to get exposure for my client. Would you be interested in placing a link on your site? That kind of stuff. We get those kind of emails all the time now. So that's precisely what I'm talking about. People are looking for links all the time. So if you have sites, autoblog sites that you build, and by the way, Damon Nelson has a fantastic training called for the RSS Masher technology and RSS Masher site, or Masher sites, I guess he calls them. That's specifically about this, creating autoblogs and just a number of ways to monetize them. You ought to check it out, Eric, if you're interested in that stuff. Damon's Masher sites training is really, really good for that. Good question. Philly Burger, now I'm hungry, says, hey, Semantic Mastery from Philly. Question for Bradley. When starting an SEO agency, what's some social proof or case study type content we can share to close clients when we don't have any clients yet? Only ever done SEO for my own agency site. Well, number one, your own agency site, rank it, right? If you can rank your own agency site in your local town, use that, use that as an example. Like, hey, I rank my own site. I mean, you could use that, but also, if you study specific methods or trainings, in some cases, it makes sense if you're going to follow a particular program or methodology. Sometimes people will allow you to use theirs as an example. You don't claim that you did it, but you can say, here are examples of the types of results that I can get using my method, using my methods. That's something else you could do, but I would recommend ranking something. I recommend, again, focusing down on a particular industry. That's how I've done that with my own business, my own agency. I deal with almost exclusively tree service contractors, but to a lesser degree with landscapers and or excavating contractors as well, because they're all kind of related, but mostly just tree service contractors. And so if you niche down or focus in on a particular industry, just go build a website. It could be a generic branded, don't make it too generic, give it an actual name, but create a website, go rank that website. And then use that as an example, make it specific to an industry, and then you can target businesses in that specific industry and point to your own asset as an example that you used, right? That's one of the best ways to do it is, I got started that way because I built lead gen assets before I ever did agency work. So I had proof that I knew what I was doing in a particular industry because I had my own assets that I ranked. And that's what I do now for I've got a bunch of examples that I can point to when I'm talking to a prospect, a tree service contractor, because I've got, years of doing it now. So, but you got to start somewhere. So build an asset in that particular industry that you want to focus on, which is what I recommend, and rank it, but use your own SEO site to begin with first. That was a good question too.
Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to pile onto that too. Depending on where you're at, like this could apply or not, but also start out with some easier stuff, like to build yourself up, but also if you can rank assets that will rank easier, right? Like identifying some keywords that might rank easier for videos, rank some YouTube videos. Don't make it hard. Kind of like Bradley's idea when I know Bradley, people ask you like, well, how much of this stuff should I do? Like, well, do the absolute minimum you need to do. Like, don't throw the kitchen sink at it and then be like, well, shit, I tried everything and it didn't work. Like, also, it's a time and expense thing. You want to do the least amount to get the best results. So I think that could apply here too.
Yeah, and there's certain, like again, in the tree service industry, there are certain keywords that are much easier to rank than tree service, right? Tree service is the most general, the broadest of keywords. So like, for example, tree trimming and tree pruning are basically the same thing, right? They mean basically the same thing, but I can rank for tree pruning a lot easier than tree trimming. Does that make sense? So another thing, stump removal or stump grinding it's not a real high value keyword. But it because of that, it's a lot less competitive. So you can rank for that easily. So and I'm just using my industry as an example, but you can go out and do stuff like, set up a G site, right? A Google site, because that will rank quicker, or a blogger blog. People don't know this, but it's, and I've been saying this for months, but blogger blogs are so underutilized. And maybe because it's kind of they look, it's hard to make them look great and everything else. But blogger blogs, remember, it's a Google property. So you can rank those very, very easily. You can create a blogger blog, rank it for some of the lower competitive keywords in whatever industry it is that you choose, by just putting good content on it, make it look nice, and then throw a bunch of spam links at it. You can do that with Blogger because it's a Google property, and you can rank it very, very quickly. And you can use that as an example. Like, you don't have to go out and, you can, and I recommend that you do also go out and build a site on a self-hosted, on a domain that's self-hosted and all that kind of stuff, something that looks nice and all that. But you can get some quick wins doing what Adam just mentioned, which was, targeting some of the lower competition keywords in a particular industry, using stuff like parasite SEO, right? Which or using Google properties, Blogger, Google sites, things like that you can build, make it look decent, and then you could throw a bunch of links at them and get on the rank very, very quickly, and then point to those as examples of what you're doing, right? While you're working on maybe ranking a more traditional site, because that usually is going to take a little bit more time. But there's some stuff that you can do. YouTube videos, yeah. I've just found, and it depends on the keyword, but I found that YouTube videos are becoming harder to rank for local terms than they used to be. Google just doesn't like to put some videos on for competitive local keywords, and I've experienced that over and over again. It can be done. Press releases, you can rank press releases. There's just a number of things that you can do. I'm always going to suggest Google sites, but what Adam said was absolutely true. Well, when I say Google sites, I mean Google properties. So, okay, next one. Andrew says, what's the best way to boost up all the pins of a brand Pinterest page? What has the pins linking back to the money site, wanting to get all individual pins indexed and ranking in Google Images and SERPs. In the past, I used Web 2.0 contextual links with mixed anchor text, but in the last year, finding indexing drops and lots of the pins stopped ranking inside regular SERPs. Andrew, I don't know. I have an answer for you down that because I don't do anything with Pinterest. I just don't. Although it's a high authority property, the same rules should probably apply to that as anything else, which would be like, I found that bulk spam links aren't working as well either. When I talked to him in the previous question here, there is a particular gig that tends to work really well with press releases as well as Blogger that on Fiverr by a provider called Up to Top, up to like TO, so UPTO top, up to top. That's his username on Fiverr. And he's got this one gig. It's a blog comment spam gig that works incredibly well for ranking like blogger posts and press release stuff on Patch, especially patch.com. I don't know why it works so well, but it works. It's just a spam gig and it works really good. I have found that like bulk spam stuff, unless you're doing an enormous amount of volume, which is probably why that works, because it's 25,000 blog comments, but then if you spend $10 to get the add-on, it says a total of 60,000 blog comments, but ends up being way more. And that's probably why it works, because it's such high volume of spam. And again, I don't ever recommend pointing that stuff at money sites or even really to tier one assets that are going to point to money sites. I really don't recommend that. But if you're going to do like parasite stuff or like what we just discussed, where you're just trying to rank a blogger property to use as a case study or an example, you could do something like that, which is a high volume, like bulk spam gig that could help to rank stuff. I don't like to do a lot of that kind of stuff anymore because I found better results with more targeted link building. I've been talking about that for months on these Hump Day Hangouts and everywhere else anybody will listen to me. I talk about link building. I do a very, very specific way. So we won't cover that again right now. But what I'm saying is I can't imagine Pinterest being any different in that you could probably do a lot of high bulk. Like I understand you're saying you're not seeing the results as much either. That's what I've experienced. Like bulk spam just isn't working unless you're doing a super huge high volume of it. It's not working like it used to. And so that's why I've shifted away from that kind of link building to using much more targeted, topically relevant links. You only need a handful of them to significantly move the needle. Started a link building business almost 4 months ago now. And right now I'm in, every month I got to update my clients and I'm going through I've done several link building client reports in the last couple of days. And it's just crazy to see significant like movement from just a handful of really good links from topically relevant sources. So getting back to your question, when it comes to this kind of stuff, I'm going to recommend better links, but you could probably still do what you were doing if you just increase the volume. That can be expensive though. So I don't know about specifically Pinterest, but I can't imagine that's much different than any of the other types of like Web 2.0 or high authority platforms. And most of them can withstand that kind of spam. The only issue is, again, part of the reason why I got away from doing a lot of that stuff, guys, is because it takes a long time for Google to crawl a lot of those, and a lot of them get terminated and they just don't get credited at all. And so it just seems like the only way that works. And again, whenever I say this, people say, well, Bradley says the bulk spam doesn't work anymore. No, I said it needs so much volume that it, in my opinion, I'd rather spend the time and effort building a handful of really high quality links from topically relevant sources that once they are placed, they stick. Whereas with bulk spam, you have to continually build more bulk spam because so many of the links, drop off or the sites get suspended, and many of them don't even get crawled to begin with. Or when they do get crawled, it takes weeks or even months for them to get crawled. With high value links from topically relevant sources, they get crawled immediately, or you can force them to get crawled, right? Send them to indexers. They produce an effect very, very quickly and they stick. They don't get this suspended or deleted, especially if you go out and build them yourself. So that's what I would recommend, is that you get better links pointing to those assets. I think you get better results, but I know that's difficult. If you've got a bunch of pins that you're going to try to build links to, that can get expensive. So bulk spam might be the way to go, but increase your volume is, I guess, what I would say. I don't know what else to tell you. I got away from doing bulk links is what I'm saying, because I found much better results, much faster results using much more targeted link building. And it's been working really well for me and my clients. So next question. How do you handle making a client local across all platforms, websites, GMB, et cetera, if the client is a remote employee and federal regulations require the use of the far away company address? Like in the case of a financial advisor working from a New York City-based company, but from his home in Plano and Texas, where he does almost all of his business in the surrounding area. I don't know. I don't know that you could do it with the Google business if the regulations are such that he has to list his business address in New York City, which is where the home office is, I guess, like the corporate offices, but he's working in Plano and picking up clients in his local area, or their local area, I should say. I don't know, because I don't work in an industry where those types of regulations are, affect us, but if you can't get a Google business profile in that location legally, or even because Google just is a pain in the ass for getting Google business profiles right now, then the only thing I could suggest at that point is just, again, a bunch of organic stuff, right? You can still rank organically. You could build a site, optimize the site for the local area, local terms. So financial advisor, Plano, Texas, and then all of the variations thereof, and rank all, we just talked about Google site, Blogger, a self-hosted site, press releases, YouTube videos potentially. You could rank all of that stuff in the organic section, maybe not maps, but in the organic section. That's the next best thing. You could also do Google ads. That can be super expensive, but you can have Google ads appear at the top of the page for keyword plus city, keyword plus near me, right? Those types of, or just the general keywords, but you set your geo targeting. So you can do it with Google ads, YouTube ads, display ads, Bing ads. There's not a lot of traffic on Bing, but there's Bing. And by the way, in a financial advisors, I don't know, maybe retirement. I don't know. I was going to say like Bing is typically used by older people more so than Google. Believe it or not, like that demographic is older that uses Bing. And so like in certain industries, it makes sense to be on Bing and to make sure you're optimized for Bing and also on Bing ads and that sort of thing. So that's something else you could check, right? Ads is a surefire way that you can do geo-targeting in your specific area. But you can also do it with organic SEO. Maybe not so much in maps, but everything else. Press releases, Blogger, Google sites, all the Google properties that you can use besides Google Business, self-hosted website, press releases, just a number of things that you could do.
Yeah, my only add-on to this would be, and this is not legal advice, please check with your client before doing any of this. And I know that financial advisors have some really strict clauses, especially if they're working for a company. So this may be a no-go. But is there a way he could have a personal potential Google property, whatever it is, a Google site, GBP, whatever it is, that represents himself in a financial way, but not as a financial advisor and not as a workaround, but just putting it out there so that he's getting some more exposure, and not using the company name. Again, this may not be legal, may not be available because of his contract with the company, but that's kind of where I would go, and kind of thinking too about what Bradley said a couple questions ago about looking at these other terms instead of, putting it up there as financial advisor. What else could he be represented as? Of course, making sure that it's legal and it's within his contract, but that might be worth talking to him about.
Yeah. Yeah, the issue is not just the legalities of it now, but it's also verifying Google business profiles without a valid business location, because so much of it's turned to video verification. And those that are still getting, and we just had a discussion about this in the mastermind again, those people that are still able to get just a postcard and verify via postcard, those Google business profiles are getting suspended, like either instantly right after the verification number is entered, or within a matter of weeks, they're just suspended, even if nothing spammy was done. So the whole point is, it's unless you have a real valid business location, it's really different. Like, forget the legal side of it. That is a hurdle that you would have to overcome, no question. But even if you could overcome that, it may be that you would be unable to even verify a Google business profile in that location. You know what I mean?
Well, in this case, I'm just thinking too, I agree, or I trust you on this, Bradley. I'm just thinking on my end that this would be a service area business where he's operating out of his home, but he operates online, I assume in this case, I don't know. So, yeah.
But even for those, they still want verification that a business resides at the address that it was registered to, even if the address is never going to be published, which is crazy. It's, that's why I haven't done it. I have not verified a GMB or Google business profile in months because of that reason. I've just been avoiding it. I've been talking about, switching strategy from doing a bunch of lead gen stuff to, which sucks because that's always been my preferred method, or doing just lead gen on an organic and ads, Google ads level, which is hard to monetize. It's hard to be profitable with lead gen and ads, at least in the industry that I'm in. Anyway.
Well, then you're gonna love this next question then.
Yeah. But, we're, just, shifting strategy to just doing more client work which I'm not crazy about, but, we have to evolve with what we have, we have to deal with what the hand that we're dealt, you know what I mean? So, all right. BB says, which model is better? Lead gen, agency, rank and rant, affiliate, CPA, sales, courses, e-commerce, dropship, software as a service, or WP Shopify plugin or template, or to download on PC, or anything else that you can think of. I don't know. I've only done local. I did affiliate stuff years ago, somewhat, but I've mainly done local my entire career, and that's all I focus on now. I prefer lead gen over agency work just because doing agency work is like, clients are a pain in the ass, and it's, I've talked about this many times, but in my industry, I get clients every year that in the wintertime, they want to suspend SEO services because tree services slow down, like business slows down in the winter months. And then because I've done such a damn good job on their Google business profiles, the spring rolls around and they don't call me to hire me again because they're still ranking. And so every year I build up tree service contractors, and then I lose a pretty good percentage of them during the winter, and they never come back. Very, very few of them ever come back because they end up ranking so well, and it sticks. And it's a lot because of like the entity-based SEO stuff that we do, sticks. It just really does. Once they become like the dominant brand or entity in their local market, they generally stick. It's hard to move them from that, and it sucks. And so I prefer to do lead gen because I maintain control. And you can still do lead gen, and rank and rent is lead gen, right? It's just instead of selling on a pay per lead basis, you're leasing the asset instead of monetizing on a per lead basis. So rank and rent and lead gen is the same thing as far as local goes. But again, I prefer lead gen over agency work. However, as I just mentioned in the previous comment, that if we have to shift away from lead gen and go to doing more agency work because of it being very difficult to verify Google business profiles, then so be it. It is what it is. We have to evolve to continue to make money. Adam, were you going to say something?
Yeah, definitely. I think, BB, it may be the way it's phrased, but to take a step back and say that the question doesn't have an answer, because it's not that one is better than the other. These are very different things. And I think that there are several ways to approach this. I think it is important that you're interested in what you end up doing and what you put your time and effort into, but you also got to pay the bills. And that's the reality. So when I look at this, I think of agency as being the quickest way, whether you want to call it just consulting, doing work for someone, freelancing, or actually building an agency. That can be one of the fastest ways to generate revenue and get money coming in the door, is performing a service for someone else and then duplicating that, right? And then lead gen is its own kind of big thing. And then rank and rent, kind of the same, but different. Affiliate sales, very different. Courses, very different again. E-commerce, different again. So you're listing a lot of business ideas. And I think that there's a lot to be said for staying in one lane and really learning it. That's why lead gen can be incredibly difficult, and it's sold in a lot of places as just do these three things and you'll be making $100,000 a year doing lead gen. And then people try it and find out it's really fucking hard because there's a lot of people doing it and there's a lot of ways to go around it. But the people who succeed are the people who stick with it. And you don't want to stick with like the sinking ship, but you've got to have some durability and the staying power to stay in any business in order to really reap the benefits. Nobody gets into an industry and is the dominant player right away. And dominant player could be nationwide, could be your state, could be your city, could be your friggin' neighborhood. But when I think about this, I would say you can try a few things, but then focus. And then over time, you can branch out, because the thing I can tell you about is knowing a lot of agency owners. Nobody's like, yeah, man, when I'm 70, I want to own a big agency. that ain't happening. But what you can do with an agency is branch into these other areas. When I look at this list, it's like, okay, well, I have an agency. I also do lead gen because I do referral business. I consider that lead gen. So when I refer business onto other people, sometimes I get a referral fee. So that's nice. I make money that way. Affiliate sales. Hell yes. I use tools. I tell my clients what I use, or I refer them to certain things. So I'm doing affiliate sales through that. I've built a course based on what I do. Potentially down the road, there's software. That's kind of the holy grail down the end of the road, is if you're an agency, you're solving other people's problems. So you should be able to find out over time, again, on the order of years, what are these specific people's problems? How can I solve it? That's what you do as an agency. And then say, hey, can I solve this with software? And then make it that way. So again, not to discourage you from looking at all of these, but choose one or two or three, try them out, but then focus down to one. Over time, you'll be able to branch back out. But if you're looking for go do lead gen, that's the best. Someone's blowing smoke up your backside. It's not that one of these is the best and the others aren't. So.
That was a great answer. Chris, you want to contribute?
Yeah, like my point of view, like is pretty much a summary like of what you guys said. Number one, what do people actually need out there? Like, where's the hungry crowds? That's always the most important for me. And second, like pretty much all of the business models that you wrote there are working, but the key is in the execution. So like the question is most likely like how well can you execute that model? And Adam like said that same thing pretty much in other words, but like that's how I see it.
Yeah, and I like what Adam said, and well, kind of Chris just touched on it as well. But it's, all of them are working, right? But it's a matter of sticking to it and having the tenacity and to stick to. Because look, let me tell you something, and I've got this right here on my wall, which is right next to me, and I keep it there. It's called the emotional cycle of change. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go to Google and search it. The emotional cycle of change. Just read about it. There's diagrams and everything else, but it talks about this kind of cycle that we all go through whenever we're making, major decisions to do anything. And specifically as it applies to a business, you pick a topic or a business idea or whatever, and you get all excited about it, and you're in what's called the uninformed optimism stage. And that's where like all you see is like the possibility, the potential. Then you start getting into it and start doing it, like executing it, going through the training, trying to, going through actually, starting to set up the business and all that other stuff. And that's where you get in, you become into stage 2, which is called the informed pessimism stage, which is like, okay, all of a sudden you're realizing the enormity of the task that you just took on, like how much work it's going to be, how little you know about it, and how much learning you have to do. All that other stuff. And then you hit what's called the stage 3 out of 5 stages, which is called the valley of despair. And that's where like you're just buried, like you're underwater. And that's the diagram that actually shows it underwater. And that's because it's like, you're trying to do all these things. You probably have way too much work to do and all this kind of stuff. You're probably not doing any of them very well and all that. But if you can stick to it and push through it, then you get to stage 4, which is informed optimism. And that's like, wow, I'm actually doing it, right? Maybe you've built some systems, you've got some personnel in place, you've got some automation in place, things that are making it easier now to where you're not constantly underwater. And then lastly, if you stick through it long enough, you get to stage 5, which is success and fulfillment, right? And that's called the emotional cycle of change. The problem is most 80, 90, 95% of people will quit at stage 2 or 3. And it's because the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, right? There's opportunity always looks better than trying to stick through something that, and pushing through all of the roadblocks and the setbacks and challenges that you're going to face with any sort of business. And that's where in this industry, especially, and it's probably like this in all industries, but I can speak from experience in this industry. People have, people call it shiny object syndrome. And they go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, because they get sold an idea from a sales page on a webinar or whatever, that like, hey, this is the easy button. And then they start. That's uninformed optimism. Then they start in on that, whatever it may be, and they find out. Then they get to informed pessimism. Then they're underwater. Does that make sense? And they at stage 2 or 3, they quit because they get sucked into another idea. They get sold another idea that's going to be the easy button, and they go start that cycle all over again. And we see this over and over and over again throughout the 10, 12 years now that I've been doing this. And in our industry, we see that all the time. So people will start something, and then they get sold a new idea, a new shiny object comes along, whether it's a new software, a new method, a new strategy, whatever, and boom, they're off to the races on that instead of continuing working on what they've already started. And so, Bibi, you've been coming to these for months, if not well over a year, asking questions like this. And I don't feel like you've selected something yet. And I know for a fact, because of some of your previous comments, that you've started on stuff and then quit and come back and ask questions. And then you start, just pick something you're interested in and stick to it. Stick to it and just make a decision that you are going to succeed in that no matter what it takes. And that's what it takes to be successful, right? Is to make that kind of a decision. Like, I'm going to make this work, hell or high water, no matter what. I'm going to stick with it until I monetize it and make it profitable. And then you can always branch out after that. But wait till you're making money with just any one thing, whatever it is that you select, before going to something else, right? or trying something else. And I mean, obviously there comes a point in time where you can cut, you know, if you reach a point where you've pursued it for you know, at some level, there comes a time where you have to like cut your losses and move on to something else. But people do that way too early, too often. And that's the problem is people, you know, and I've done it too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not immune from that. I'm not above all that shit. I've done it too over the years, many, many times. But that's why in the last 6 months or whatever, we've really gotten focused semantic mastery on what we teach and what we do, because we were spread too thin, right? We got specifically in on local SEO, local marketing. And that's like, because of that, we've grown too, right? And so again, we've become more successful. Our revenue's up, and it's because we got really, really focused on what we do. We do one thing, we do it really fucking good, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, that's how you become successful in anything you do. Right now, I started a link building business I just mentioned 4 months ago. I'm fascinated with links. I spend an enormous amount of time studying links and developing new methods and everything else. And that business is growing. Why? Because I'm stuck in on that and I'm doing that. And I said, I'm going to make this successful, and it's working. Not always so fortunate, but in this case, it has been. And so that's what I recommend. Again, Adam said at the beginning of his answer, pick something that you have a genuine interest in. Yes, we're all in this to make money, but also pick something that you genuinely have an interest in, because it feels less like work if you have a genuine interest in it. So if, you know, you listed in one of your follow-up questions, things I thought of more: ebook, app, social media pages. I can tell you that's the last damn thing I'd want to do is, I know you can make a shit ton of money doing social media stuff like TikTok and YouTube stars and all that kind of whatever. I have no interest in any of that shit. You know what I mean? Like, so even though you can make a ton of money in that, that's not something I would ever want to pursue.
Yeah. I think I've reminded myself of I had to find a quote. The summary of all of our answers is, you can do anything. You just can't do everything.
That's right. That's a good one. Good way to summarize that. Anyways, that was a great question, BB. But just pick something that you have a genuine interest in. It feels like I love SEO and I love link building now. For whatever reason, I'm absolutely fascinated with link building, and that I literally dream about it. I know that sounds crazy, but I swear to God, it's insane. But perhaps that's why my link building business is successful right now, because I'm very, very passionate about it. Find something you're passionate about, and it makes it so much easier to stick with it through that valley of despair, the emotional cycle of change, and you'll make it successful. It's a really good question, though. JT SEO says, Bradley, a service area GMB creation question. I'm setting up a family member on a legit service area business. Okay. I'd like to have the GMB snag traffic or serve areas in a large city, but my family member lives 3 hours away. Can he set up his DBA in his hometown, or to pass the Google video verification, does he need to get his DBA in the city 3 hours away? Will the Google in-person verifier care? I heard you previously recommend to try Google Workspace, and I will try that. I don't know, because I'm not sure how the whole video verification thing works, because I have not gone through it myself. JT, like I said, I've been avoiding generating or verifying new profiles because of that. So I'm not exactly sure how that works. Having a doing business as is something that could help to validate that business, though. And I know that because, you know, I do that for my lead gen assets. I've got a few brands that I've built over the years, and I have doing DBAs for that. I used to set up different LLCs, and that became a tax nightmare. So I just started setting up DBAs instead, and everything flows through my main LLC. And that is definitely something, because you can show corporate documents then for that, you know, it's a fictitious name or doing business as. So that may help. I don't know if that would or not, because again, I've not had to deal with that with Google yet. But I know that is certainly a verification, because, like, for example, in Virginia State Corporation Commission, you can look up some of my fictitious names and they are associated with a valid LLC, if that makes sense. So I think that can certainly help. But I don't know if a DBA is a way to overcome a video verification, especially if you're corporate or the parent company, that the main company. Remember, DBA is a fictitious name, so it's LLC or Inc., right? Doing business as, DBA as, whatever the fictitious name is. I don't know if you can. I don't know how that works with having a different address. So to be honest, it's just hard for me to answer that. this question, not this specific question, but methods about GMB verification or Google Business Profile verification came up again. I was just mentioning this previously. There was a discussion in our mastermind about it today, in fact. And some of the stuff that I've done in the past to prevent suspension issues, which has worked, is to only verify Google Business Profiles through Google Workspace's account, formerly G Suite accounts. Now it's Workspace. So you set up a Workspace account with a credit card. You start the payment because they have a 14-day free trial, but you can override that and start the subscription immediately. Start the subscription immediately. Now you've got a credit card on file. You're paying Google. That's a validation signal. Then I would verify Google Business Profiles under that account. Something else you can do is once you verify the profile, immediately set up Google Ads for that profile. Run some ads to it. Why? Because once again, it's connecting that profile, that location, to another through another billing profile through Google Ads, right? Another thing, and I talked about this in the mastermind, submit the Google Business Profile through data aggregators. You can go to Bright Local and order it for like $85 for the year, the major data aggregators, and then let it sit for 60 days before you start trying to optimize it, because the data aggregators will validate the location, the data for that location, and Google tends to trust those. So those are things that you can do to kind of prevent suspensions. As far as creating and verifying a profile in the way that you're asking, I just don't know, because it is just so much harder to do now. I don't know that you could get away with that. So, I mean, the only thing I could suggest is try. The whole problem with the video verification thing is they want to see that there's a real valid business at the location where you are registering the address for that profile, even if it's a service area business, which is what I was saying to Adam earlier. Even if the location address is never going to be published, Google wants to verify there's a real valid business at that location. So how do you do that? Right? That's the challenge. So sorry I couldn't give you a better answer. I've been avoiding all of this specifically because I know that it's an issue, and I don't know a workaround for it, and I don't really know of anybody that has a workaround for it that I'm aware of. We're almost out of time. I'll try to get through another one or two. Arthur says, hey, as someone trying to rank for service-related keywords, is there any benefit to iframing in third-party content to help your own rankings, i.e. iframing in a Wikipedia page or other website? Yeah, there is. Of course there is. It's still relevance. Wondering if we can leverage other types of iframes to boost up our own stuff. If so, what would you suggest embedding that wouldn't benefit a competitor? Well, you just mentioned one. Wikipedia page will do. You could also, again, we talked about news stuff earlier. In one of the autoblog stuff, you can iframe in news or blogs that aren't specifically competitors. So like if you're doing local business stuff, you could iframe in blog content from topical blogs, like blogs that are about the same topic, but they're not blogs from your local competitors, right? There's a number of things that you can do, but yeah, iframes work because Google reads that content and it attributes it's like content on that page, even if it's iframed in. Like you mentioned, Wikipedia page, I know that that's being done. That can work. So yeah, all of those. Again, blogs that aren't specific competitors, you can embed that kind of content. News content, that works. If it is local, you can also oftentimes find local events, like local event sites, Facebook pages. You can't really iframe a Facebook page in, but you can find local event calendars and things like that and iframe those in, because that adds location relevance. Even if it's not topical relevance, it's location relevance, right? So you can do that. Number of things. All right, we're almost done, guys. Henry says, hi, regarding a new simple virtual silo build with 5 top silo pages and supporting post in one niche. Will it help to noindex or nofollow category archives in the blog index page too? And what about not creating a blog index page to not leak any link juice if having one does? Nofollow category archives. Why don't you just redirect the category archive page to the top of silo page? Right? If each top of silo page is its own page, but then you have 5 separate categories, just redirect the category archive page to the top of silo page. Does that make sense? So then again, that's an internal linking strategy, like that method that is using the way that WordPress links through taxonomies, but it automatically flows all that link juice, internal link juice up through those taxonomy category URLs up to the top of silo page. That's actually how we teach it and how we have been for years. So instead of no indexing that, why not utilize it by redirecting it to the top of silo page, the category archives. You don't need a blog index page. You don't have to if you don't plan on publishing content regularly. If you are going to publish content regularly, don't no index it, just no follow it from the address bar. Does that make sense? Like if you got a blog button in the navigation menu, just no follow that button. Don't no index it, just no follow it. Oh, you said no follow, excuse me. Well, you said no index or no follow. Yeah, no follow, but don't no index. Definitely keep it indexed. But for category archives specifically, just do a 301 redirect from the category. So domain.com/category slug, you redirect 301 redirect that to the top, that's corresponding top of silo page, which would be the same slug should be without the category, /category in the middle of the URL. It's a good question. All right, we do have to wrap it up, but just Henry, very quickly, please address this too, time permitting. How do we better isolate linkage flow, leaks from the footer and main nav links to or from other pages and posts? Well, again, you can no follow that in WordPress. In the menu, when you're editing menus in WordPress, if you click the screen options drop down at the top, it will reveal like checkboxes and stuff. Check I think it's X, whatever. I can't remember what the name of it is off the top of my head because I just do it, but you check it off and then it will reveal in the menu items no follow or fields where you can type in no follow. And you can no follow like contact page, about page, all your footer links, privacy, terms of service, all that. Just add no follow tags to those. Even if you have to do it at the PHP level, right? Edit the theme templates, the footer.php theme file, and just add a no follow tag to those. Whatever you got to do, just no follow all that stuff. That's what I do. But within menu settings, you can do that very easily. There's a checkbox, screen options, checkbox. You check it and it will allow you to it reveals another field in each one of the menu items where you just type in no follow. And that's how you no follow the navigation menu items that you want to no follow. Contact, about, those aren't necessary. Footer items, same thing. No follow those when you can. We got to wrap it up. There you go. Motion cycle change. Thank you, Adam. Okay, cool. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Build with Bradley Group is tomorrow. For those of you that are part of that, we'll see you guys then. Thanks, everyone.